My husband moved his ex-wife in without asking me. She acted like this is her home. I've been married to my husband for 2 years now. And for the most part, things have worked out smoothly between us. We've had an unconventional living arrangement, but it suited our lifestyle. I travel frequently for work, and I keep an apartment in another city, where I stay during the week. It was a good setup. I had my space during the week. And on weekends, I'd come home to our shared house where we could enjoy time together. It wasn't the typical arrangement, but it was ours, and it worked. Or at least, it did until about 3 weeks ago, when everything changed. Out of nowhere, my husband dropped a bombshell on me. He told me that his ex-wife, the mother of his 10-year-old son, had lost her job and couldn't afford her rent. Without discussing it with me first, he had offered her to move into our home, temporarily, until she could get back on her feet. Now, let me be clear. I've always known that my husband and his ex-wife have maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of their son. And I've always respected that. I understand that co-parenting is important. And I've never had an issue with the fact that they communicate regularly about their son. But this? Offering his ex-wife a place to live in our home without so much as a conversation with me? That felt like a betrayal. I was blindsided. One day, it was just the two of us navigating our unusual, but functional, life together. And the next, his ex-wife had moved into my home. I don't care how amicable their relationship is. This was a massive decision. One that affects my life and my marriage. And he made it without even consulting me. How could he think that was okay? When I told him I wasn't comfortable with her being there, he brushed it off, saying I was being selfish, and that this was about helping his son's mother. Not about rekindling anything romantic. He made it sound like I was overreacting. Like this was all purely logistical and had nothing to do with me. But it has everything to do with me. This is my home, too, and I should have a say in who lives in it. He told me it was about doing what's best for his son. About providing stability for him. And while I understand that in theory, I can't help but feel disrespected. Why didn't he talk to me first? It's as if my opinion doesn't matter in our marriage. He framed the whole thing as if I was putting my own feelings ahead of his son's well-being. And that hit me hard. I've always wanted what's best for his son. But that doesn't mean I should be expected to ignore my own boundaries. To make matters worse, his ex-wife seems way too comfortable with the situation. She's acting like this is her home, too. The first weekend I came back, I noticed she had redecorated the guest room without asking anyone, making it more like her personal space. She even suggested we all sit down for family dinners on weekends. Family dinners? As if we're one big happy family? I couldn't stomach the idea. I flat out refused. This whole situation was too much already. And now I was expected to play along and pretend everything was fine? I told my husband that I wouldn't be coming back to the house until she moved out. He was furious. He called me immature and said I was choosing my pride over his son's well-being. He insisted that this was temporary. But honestly, I had no idea what temporary meant in his mind. Days? Weeks? Months? And what if she never gets back on her feet? Am I supposed to live like this indefinitely? He accused me of being jealous. But it's not about that. It's about boundaries. It's about respect. I wouldn't have cared if he had come to me first and we had a conversation about it. But the way he went about it made me feel like I had no say in my own life. I felt like he was making decisions for me without considering how they affected me. Then things got even more complicated. My husband revealed that his ex-wife has been struggling with mental health issues. And that if she doesn't show stability, she could lose custody of their son. He painted a picture of her spiraling out of control and their son ending up in the foster care system. He was terrified of losing his son and framed the situation as if I was the one standing in the way of his son's future. Suddenly, the situation wasn't just about his ex-wife living in my house. It was about preventing his son from being taken away. And that made me feel incredibly guilty. How could I prioritize my own discomfort over his son's well-being? But at the same time, I felt like this whole situation was being used to manipulate me into accepting something I wasn't okay with. Then came another bombshell. My husband admitted that he had been financially supporting his ex-wife for months without telling me. He said it was just to help her out with groceries and bills. But this felt like another betrayal. We're supposed to be a team. And yet he's been making major decisions that impact our life together without even consulting me. I couldn't believe he had been keeping this from me. It wasn't just about the money, it was about trust. How am I supposed to trust him when he's been hiding things like this? I know she's the mother of his child. And I want to support him in doing what's best for his son. But where are the boundaries? Am I just supposed to let her live in my house indefinitely? Redecorating rooms and acting like she belongs there? And how am I supposed to feel knowing that my husband has been secretly helping her financially this whole time? I feel like I'm being gaslighted into accepting something that makes me deeply uncomfortable. On one hand, I understand that this is a tough situation for my husband, and I don't want to make things harder for him. But on the other hand, I feel like my feelings are being completely disregarded. I'm being made to feel like I'm the one in the wrong for having boundaries. For wanting to be included in decisions that affect my life. I love my husband, and I want to be there for him and his son. But I don't know if I can live like this. I feel like I'm being pushed aside. Like my opinions don't matter. I can't help but wonder if this is the way things are always going to be. If I'll always be expected to sacrifice my own comfort and boundaries for the sake of his ex-wife and their son. Am I being heartless for prioritizing my own comfort over his son's well-being? Or am I right to feel disrespected and betrayed by the way my husband has handled this situation? I honestly don't know anymore.
AITAH for confronting my sister about cheating with my husband based on what her mom told me. The past few months have been a slow descent into something I never thought I'd experience. My husband, the man I trusted with everything, is cheating on me. I can feel it deep in my bones. The way people who've been together for years just know when something is off. It didn't happen all at once, but it's been building, creeping into my thoughts, into every quiet moment of the day. The signs are there, glaringly obvious, if you know what to look for. It started with the small things, the kind of things you'd brush off if you didn't know any better. He used to leave his phone around. No big deal. We never had secrets. At least I didn't think we did. But now, his phone is always with him, like it's glued to his hand. And the location tracker, the one we both used just for safety, just to know where the other was in case something happened, he turned it off. He said it was a glitch, that his phone was acting up. But glitches don't happen for weeks at a time. And they certainly don't explain the missed calls, the late nights, and the vague excuses. He stays out late now. Work stuff, he says. But when I ask him who he's with, it's always someone I don't know or someone whose name slips too easily from his mouth. Like a rehearsed line. I've stopped asking about the details because it's the same every time. A quick answer followed by a brush off or a change of subject. But every time he says something, it feels like a little more distance grows between us. It's more than just the phone and the late nights. Though, he's been ignoring me. Or at least, he's been acting like I'm not really here. We used to talk about everything, plans for the baby, what we wanted for the future. Even stupid things like what we'd watch on TV that night. Now, when I try to start a conversation, it's like he's not listening. Like his mind is somewhere else. And I know where that somewhere else is. Or, I think I do. I've talked to my mom about it a lot. She's been my sounding board. The person I've been going to when I feel like I'm losing my mind. I tell her everything. And she listens. At least, she did. A few days ago, after one particularly bad night when my husband didn't come home until well after midnight, I told her I was sure he was cheating on me. That's when she said something that's been stuck in my head ever since. Emma's been acting weird too. Emma is my younger sister. She's 19, just started college, and still lives at home with my parents. According to my mom, Emma has been pulling the same stunts, going out late, coming home at odd hours, being secretive. Mom said it offhandedly, like she was just making an observation. But once she said it, I couldn't get it out of my head. My sister, Emma, and my husband have always gotten along. They've always had a friendly relationship, laughing at the same jokes, talking at family dinners. But now, looking back, it all seems too friendly, too familiar. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. What if it's Emma? What if my husband is cheating on me with my own sister? I tried to push the thought away, but it wouldn't go. It stayed with me, growing stronger every day, until I couldn't keep it inside any longer. I had to confront her. I had to know. This morning, I went to my parents' house. Emma was there, sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. My heart was pounding in my chest as I asked her if we could talk. She gave me a weird look but shrugged and followed me to her room. The moment the door closed, I blurted it out. "Are you sleeping with my husband?" Her reaction was instant. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "What the hell are you talking about?" I told her everything. About how my husband had been acting. About how mom had noticed the same behavior in her. I didn't hold back. I was angry, hurt, desperate for answers. And I let it all out. I told her mom had said she'd been sneaking out, staying out late, and that it seemed like too much of a coincidence for it not to be connected. Emma lost it. She called me an insecure bitch. Said I was insane for even thinking something like that. She denied everything. Of course. She said I was paranoid. That I was making something out of nothing. But the way she looked at me, the anger in her eyes, it only made me more certain that I was right. Why else would she react like that? I told her mom had said something. That mom had noticed the same things I had. And that's when Emma really flipped. She stormed out of the room. And now my mom is furious at me for throwing her under the bus. She says she was just talking. That she didn't mean for me to take it the way I did.
Ray,
My other sister, wants nothing to do with any of this. She's got her own life, her own kids, and she doesn't want to get dragged into this mess.
and now,
I'm sitting here, alone in my house, waiting for my husband to come home. Except, he hasn't come home. It's late, really late, and he's not answering his phone. I've texted him a dozen times, called him even more, but there's no response. I know he's seen my messages. They've been marked as read, but he's not answering. I don't know if he's coming back tonight, or if he's coming back at all. I'm 37 weeks pregnant. I've been on unpaid FMLA for the last month because of complications with preeclampsia. My blood pressure is through the roof, and I'm trying to stay calm. But it's hard. Everything feels like it's falling apart around me, and I don't know what to do. Some people have suggested hiring a private investigator, but that's not an option for me. I don't have the money for it. All of my savings are going toward the baby and whatever medical bills might come up. A PI just isn't in the budget. But then again, neither is a divorce. I know how much lawyers cost. And right now, that's just not something I can afford. People keep telling me I'm jumping to conclusions, that I don't have proof. But if I filed for divorce now, wouldn't that be jumping to conclusions too? And where would that leave me? Pregnant.
broke,
And alone. I feel trapped. I know my husband is cheating, but I don't know what to do about it. I feel like every option I have leads to the same place, nowhere. My mom says I'm making a mistake, that I should have kept my mouth shut. But how could I? How could I stay quiet when I think my sister might be the one my husband is having an affair with? And even if it's not Emma, even if it's someone else, I deserve to know the truth. I'm not crazy for wanting answers. I'm not crazy for confronting her. Am I? I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe my husband will come home and we'll talk. Or maybe he won't come back at all. But I can't keep living in this uncertainty. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not.